start us off, we're going to hear from Deputy Chief of Arlington County Police, Michael Dunne. He is also commander of the Operations Division.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank the Committee of Honor for inviting me here on behalf of Chief Scott. To my right, your left, and the table here is Captain Cameron Outfield. He's listed here. He's the commander of the 2nd Police District. Now, people clap here. The 2nd Police District is it contains the Clarendon area, which when we talk bar crawls, for the most part, we are talking about the Clarendon area, although in reality, bar crawls that we've had in the last year and a half have spread from Lee Road, Balls, and all the way down to the courthouse area. But the vast majority of all are Clarendon. I thought I'd take a couple of minutes at the beginning of this to explain to those of you who might not have any idea what a bar crawl is, just kind of set the table for the conversation tonight. The first understanding that we had of it was back in February of 13. The event was actually in March. Shamrock Fest was organized by some of the gentlemen here who are very easy to work with from Project DC events, Alex and Michael here. And the event was to organize a number of the establishments in Arlington. Depending on the size of the bar crawl, it can be 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 different bars. They have destination bars for the bar crawl. And you have the opportunity to register, generally ahead of time online. But in some circumstances, you can register the day of the event. And you are given instructions. There's a location that you can go and register. You get a mug, a wristband, and depending on the event, some other things. And then you are invited to participate to go into these different bars that are all participating. They've got some sort of contractual agreement with the organizers. They're a lot of fun. They draw a tremendous amount of people. The first ones that we had 1,500, 2,000 people sign up and attend. And it was very well received, and that led to the next one, which was the All-American Bar Crawl, which was around July 4th, June 26th or 13, I believe. That was a much bigger event. After that, the 2 events that we had around Halloween last year, which were sizable as well. I would like to note what easy it has been to work with these gentlemen. The Marine Corps Marathon, for those of you who live in Arlington, is the largest public safety event that we have. It takes essentially every sworn law enforcement personnel in our agency, the Sheriff's Office, the State Police, we borrow some of our neighboring jurisdictions. And the day-to-day originally requested to do their bar crawl around Halloween was the night before the Marine Corps Marathon. And we said, we just can't do that. And they were very cooperative and pushed their day. So I always try to give kudos for their understanding that we can only do what we can do. So the bar crawls, that's how they began. Every one of them has been a little bit bigger than the last. The problem from a law enforcement perspective is the number of people that they draw can overwhelm the system. For those of you who are not aware, the bars in the Clarendon area, from about Edgewood Street all the way over to Washington Boulevard, the seating capacity for the fire marshal is just over 7,000. That's a normal amount of people that you might see on a Friday or Saturday night. So we have an event like this that draws several thousand more. And if you've ever been in the area, you know the streets are completely overwhelmed. People who just want to go down and have a nice meal or try to get from the Lyon Village side of Wilson Boulevard over to the Trader Joe's, but have a very difficult time navigating. So, you know, we have so many people in such a small area, and the vast majority of them are impossible. So that's where our challenge is. So after the event last year, other organizers said, hey, this sounds like a good way to get involved in the community, make some money. participate on, participate on, participate. That led to the first event of 2013, which was the Shamrock Fest, which was about 2.5 times the size of the one from the previous year. And then the following weekend, another organizer had a bar crawl, and that was 2 weekends in a row that people who live or visit the Clarendon area were, from their perspective, inconvenienced by that. If you don't like participating in them, they can be very much overwhelmed. Our resources, as far as the police department goes, the event on the night in March of this year, there were so many people there. By varying accounts, 5,400 to 6,000 members that came to participate in the bar crawl, that by the end of the evening, we wound up having all of our evening patrols that normally gets off around 11 o'clock at night. We had to have everybody respond. We had 53 officers between like 12 and 3 o'clock in the morning. So we were overwhelmed with the number of individuals. The number of arrests are double, triple what we normally have, and that's a false number as well. I can only arrest so many people because every time an officer arrests somebody, they have to go to booking with the person, and I can go to 40 officers to 30 in 15 minutes, and I've only got 30 to deal with the other 500 people. So we try to get everybody into a cab, or even into an Uber or a Lyft, or a friend. Any way we can get them at the end of the event, we can get them home safely. That's our goal. So all of this led to conversations with our friends at the county board. We had a community meeting, I believe it was April 30th at Key School, where we had a lot of stakeholders involved. John Williams from Whitlow on Wilson represented himself very well. We had the general manager and owner of Part Time Cafe was there. We had members of the community. We had elected officials. We had members of the county manager's staff to try to capture everybody's feelings about what was going on in the bar calls, because they were new, they were overwhelmed. We have a budget, the police department has a budget to put officers in the Clarendon area to maintain control there on Friday and Saturday night. And that amount of money was dissipating quickly. $60,000 is dedicated in our budget to staff the Clarendon detail, and that one night in March we spent $18,000. So imagine how that was a challenge for us. Since that time, after all these meetings, the community input, the resolution went in front of the county board to change the definition of what was a special event in our. These types of events did not fall under what we had previously had as our special event policy. In many ways, because we did not want to close down the streets. That would have caused a whole separate set of issues, particularly for the people who live in the neighborhoods north of Wilson Boulevard. If we had to close down Wilson Boulevard to try to control what was going on, we would have to divert all that traffic someplace, starting at about Barton Street. Going north into the neighborhood, and that would have been a whole separate set of issues. So the goal was to always keep the streets open as best as we could. So since that time, I believe it was in July meeting that the definition was adopted by the county board to change, and these bar crawls now are controlled by our special event policy, meaning that the organizers now have to apply for a permit. Previously, they could have told us 3 or 4 weeks in advance, we want to do one of these, and we didn't have a policy for them to be with us and meet all these requirements. The other issue, obviously, for us is for us to be able to get reimbursed for the amount of public safety assets that go into these types of events. Police, fire, EMS, even cleaning up the area. I would imagine most of you are not driving around at 3 o'clock in the morning the night after one of these, but Clarendon looks a bit like a war zone. The people who live in the community, some of them love it, some of them hate it. We're going to hear some of that here tonight, I'm sure. People have said, I don't want Clarendon to turn into Bourbon Street anymore. I believe that the steps that we have taken to cooperation with our board members and county staff to try to control these, eliminate them, size and scope, and frequency. I have 1 minute left. I will be on the panel toward the end of this to answer any questions, but from a law enforcement perspective, it is necessary for us to get our arms around them so that we control them and allow people to enjoy the fabulous area that we have. You know, everybody, my generation was Georgetown. This generation of millennials, they want to come to Clarendon, but everybody that wants to come wants to have a good time, stay safe, and that's all.
Thank you, Chief Dunne. Next, we will hear from John Williams. He is the managing partner of Whitlow's on Wilson.
Thank you. I'm filling in for my father, Greg Cahill, an old friend, medical attended that. So he apologizes. He got me instead. So, I grew up in Clarendon, Arlington, now, and I am in support of responsible bar crawl. I wanted to add a little bit more details about what bar crawls are. Not all from big promoters. A lot of the bar crawls are from small groups or charitable organizations that have a similar concept to a promoter, but money going to charity. So under the classification of bar crawls, a lot of smaller ones have minimal impact into the neighborhood. So keep that in mind when you're discussing these in the future, especially maybe. So we know how bar crawls happen. As far as business is concerned, there are 3 or 4 big bar crawls that we've experienced. Strictly from a business standpoint, our sales have gone from 30 to 50%, depending on the event, higher than they would normally be. I've talked to other business owners, Clarendon, who haven't even participated in the event, and some of them told me they got record sales on those days, or not even participating. So I think they're good for business. They bring a ton of people into the neighborhood who probably would never come here. I think I read an article today now Clarendon's #1 millennial place to live in the country, which is awesome. I'm always proud of that. It's cool. I'm proud to have a business there. So I do understand that some of these big bar calls are taxing on the county resources and taxing on the residents. I don't discount that. I would like to find a way, I hope we can find a way to continue to have these events responsibly and safely, and hopefully we can figure out a way for the money to pay for the police work and whatnot. That being said, I think that the amount of tax revenue that's generated from the businesses during these events does contribute to that. And while I think promoters should be responsible for some of that cost, absolutely. Do I think they should pay for all of it? That's another discussion. They're here tonight, so you can ask that. But I don't want to scare organizations away for financial reasons, them to do their events elsewhere, do them in DC or somewhere else, not in Arlington. Because I think in the big picture, it brings a lot of people to our neighborhood, for the better or worse. It puts us on the map, for better or for worse, mostly for better. And I think they can be done successfully and safely, and I hope we can come to that. So, how much time do I have? All right. Everybody come to brunch on Saturday and Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I would be remiss remiss if I did not notice that while presentations were going on, we were joined by another member of the Arlington County Board, Mr. Garland. And now we would like to hear from the president of the Lyon Village Civic Association, Ms. Loria Porcaro. Did I pronounce that correctly?
We've had a good working relationship with our business partners. Whenever issues have come up, such as recently we had the rooftop bars open up, and there was some noise that would come into the community, and work with the bars, were able to mitigate some of that noise and accommodate the Lyon Village residents of the bars. So same thing with the bar calls. They came up, we began working with the police and our business neighbors to solve those issues as well. And through the Live Entertainment Committee as well. We met with them and have been working with issues. We understand the needs of businesses. They can be growing to stay in business. We want them to stay in business. We like going to brunch. So, we don't want anyone to lose their livelihood because of, it's very competitive here in the Arlington courthouse area, and so we don't want to see people lose that opportunity to make more money. And Lyon Village residents and the bar patrons have been able to cook this for many years, mainly because most of the Lyon Village residents are home in bed, but that's when the bar patrons are coming out for the night. We go up, we have dinner, we catch movies, we have ice cream, whatever it is, and most of us are safely at home before the 10 o'clock people, the 11 o'clock people, the midnight people are coming out. What happened when the bar crawls were introduced was they started at 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon. They were there at 6 o'clock when we were having dinner. And I think a lot of people were intimidated by that. They were worried that it would give Lyon Village a bad reputation, give Standard a bad reputation. And a lot of people, this is the main thing that I got calls about, was public safety. Many of the children, young adults, were highly intoxicated, stepping off the curb into the street right in front of cars. So that's when we contacted the police and said, a little concerned, can we do something, because we don't want to see anyone get hurt. So then the last thing being the next morning, they were supposed to go up to brunch on Sunday and find all the remnants of the night before, some of which were not very appealing as you're on your way to brunch. So having to make sure that things are cleaned up from the night before, just like on a typical weekend night. In such excess that things were not being taken care of appropriately. So our main concern again was the safety, cleaning up the neighborhood, making sure that there wasn't a bad reputation being developed because of people partying too hard, and that's what we think that the adjustments to the special events permits would accommodate. And not putting burden on taxpayers and staff to pay for the additional police presence, emergency management, and cleanup of these events. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Porcaro. At this time, I'd like to move into our question and answer session. If the speakers would come up and come to the table. Patrick, we have two volunteer mic holders. Okay. We also have some individuals from the Project DC events, Mike Bramson and Alex Lopez here. They may be able to assist in answering questions. If there's something that comes up that seems like it would be in your area of expertise, just raise your hand and we'll find you. And now we're ready. Okay, there's a question back there.
Hi, I'm Kelly here. I'm curious, you mentioned, because I've learned a lot here tonight, the bar crawl. I'm curious how you came up with that name, number one. Is crawl already gives you a feeling that people are going to be crawling. And I used to bar hop, as my daughter would tell people, in Georgetown, and that gives a feeling of being sober. My question is, they people who do the bar crawls, they get a mug, and does the ABC board turn their head at people who serve liquor? Do they allow people to be smashed and they continue to serve them? I work in a winery in New York in the summertime. We have festivals, and they get the cup and they go from winery to winery. If they're inebriated, I don't serve them. I'm not allowed to. How does that work? So whoever can answer.
No, I'm happy to answer. The ABC, you're allowed to do drink specials. Can you all hear me? So, according to ABC rules, you're allowed to have discounted drink specials before 9 p.m. So that's when they come to us and say, we're going to do this, and these are the specials we want to offer everybody at all the bars. So that's what we do. When they have a mug, that's just, sorry. Hello again. You have a mug, they can bring it in and get it filled up with one of the specials. It's not an ABC violation to do that. Serving someone who's overly intoxicated is an ABC violation, and we do our best. I mean, if someone comes up and they're inebriated, we're going to kick them out. And I think that's what part of the problem is as far as the police are concerned, because these people are going hopping, crawling, whatever you want to call it, but we're going to kick them out, and then they have nowhere to go, and they're on the street, and that's what I think adds to the problem. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
I'll flesh that out a little. As Loria initially said, and then John touched upon again, these events start much earlier in the afternoon because ABC rules say that they can't have these drink specials after 9 o'clock at night. So the events may start at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and people are good and warmed up by the time most people are just going out to a bar. With regard to our partners in the alcohol beverage control, the numbers are just overwhelming. You can go into a bar, and as an ABC agent, you have to witness the sale to somebody they presume is overly intoxicated, and then the citation would actually go to the bartender or the server, not to the establishment. It would be a needle in a haystack in terms of what we could do to control it. It sounded like a good tool for us, but we learned very early on that ABC doesn't have the capacity to really influence the size of things. Okay.
Hi, I'm Gail Dennis. And I would like to make a suggestion. When you hand out these mugs, you hand out some little tickets, like 2 or 3 tickets that are worth 1 alcoholic drink each, or they pay at that point. And that's all they can have. That's when they run out of their alcoholic tickets, then they cannot serve any more drinks in those mugs. And that this should control some of the excessive drinking, and perhaps outdoor bathroom problems in some neighborhoods. Thank you.
That would have to be through the promoters, and they're here tonight. So I think they're soaking all this in.
With the mugs, just give them 3 drink tickets that they can redeem. I don't think it's going to be appealing to people that are.
Hi, Peter Fallon. I guess, having lived here over 25 years, I guess I'm concerned about what type of community we are becoming. And, you know, if I want to go to Wisconsin and N Street, as I did in my youth, I went to college in D.C., and party in the street, I can certainly do that. I'm not really sure what real benefit we're getting in the community from this. And my question really is, we've got by without these before. What exactly stops the businesses, albeit you're in a competitive environment, but what really stops you from having drink specials and promotions or applying for live music permits, whatever you want to do, filling up your bars on your own and keeping these people in your bars, serving them all they want, whatever, you know, you make money that way. Why does it have to be a burden to the community and to the police force? Seems like there's a different way for you to make more money. It doesn't negatively impact Arlington, the people who live closest to it, and our mere reputation.
I mean, I think that I'm just going to speak strictly numbers. If you can, I say this strictly numbers because I'm also a human being and I live here and I understand what you're saying. But if you can fill your place up during off hours, it's a great business. I mean, that's good business. Now, longevity issues that are coming up, that's not great business in that sense. So I respect that and I understand what you're saying. There have been multiple, but there's really only one company that is actually producing big numbers for bar crawls. I've chosen not to participate in several other bar crawls, not because I didn't think they were going to be busy, because I didn't know who they were, and we just said we're not going to do anything. I think even if I said, if they do another bar crawl, if I said, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to be involved in it, we would still be busy, just because enough people are going to jump at the opportunity to fill their place up and do extreme numbers and make a bunch of money. Even if I said I'm not going to do it, we would still, if I say I'm not going to do it, the guy up the street's going to do it. And he's going to get all that business because there's business there. So even if I chose not to do it, we still have the same issues unless every bar says, no, we're not going to do it. I'm just trying to be very real with an honest answer.
Hi, I'm Katie Kelly. My question is for you guys, the organizers of the event. So I go online and I buy my ticket, which I've never done. Sorry. How much does it cost for somebody to get online and buy their ticket for the crawl?
If you buy early bird, it starts at $7.
Okay.
And then regular tickets are $15, and $20 for the book.
So I'm sorry, it's going to be kind of a dialogue. Like, how does it work? Like, you get online, you buy your ticket, it's $7. What does it give you?
So what we do is you register your ticket either you usually do Mad Rose, Grand Ballroom, or Velocity 5. So you get a wristband, you get a mug, you get a map, and you get party favors to every participant with a ticket. And you have photographers, you have photo booths, you can go to any participating bars and get the questions.
Okay. How many people are allowed to register for the event?
I mean, depending on the event or how many, the bar's capacity. So if we have, like our first event, we start off with 6 bars, and then we didn't know what the participation was going to be like, and then as numbers increase, we increase the amount of bars. We never surpassed that. We haven't had, I think, seating capacity 7,000 for all the bars. We never hit that point. But I know for it was the All-American, we actually cut off sales. Probably should have Shamrock Hall. Shamrock Hall, we cut off sales 3 days early. The issue was that people still can come to Clarendon whether they have a wristband or not, and they overloaded the bars before our guests even got there. So that was something where the numbers were a little painted because even though we only had 3,000 or 4,000 sold, there were 6,000 to 7,000 people in Clarendon.
At the end of this whole registration event, how much money does this create as registration?
I'd rather not say that.
Okay. And who gets the registration fee? Does that go to the county? Does that go to the police department? Does that just go to your organization?
You mean the tickets, like
Yeah.
ticket sales, that goes to us to cover our costs for all the things that they are, getting. The must cost money. I mean, the online ticketing system takes away money, and then we're an honest business, and obviously we pay taxes on that.
Okay. So the only money that goes back into the community from the whole registration process is the taxes that you pay.
Well, the
Back
taxes
in.
and the sales tax that all the bars.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Can I add to that a little bit? That is identifying one of the challenges with these is that they are very popular. So as Mike was pointing out, they can cut off their sales several days before because, like I said, they really do very well to work with us. So they'll say, okay, we're going to cut it off to 4,500 people and we're not going to sell anymore at that point. But they're well advertised and the rest of the people, they show up. There's an old adage that says, rising tide lifts all boats. And as John mentioned, even if you're not one of these 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 destination bars, when the people are there, they want to go and have a drink, so they're going to go into any of the establishments at that point. And that's why you see these record sales, 30, 60% up. So I mean, that's part of the problem is we can't control them once they're advertised and they're going on. Other people show up. It's not like the same as the Oktoberfest down in Shirlington where there's a certain number of tickets sold and then it's a caged off area and you can't get in if you didn't have one of the original 200 tickets or whatever. So that is a challenge for us as well.
Christine Gregory. So I do understand then that what you pay for registration is not paying for any alcohol at all. The alcohol, every time you go into a bar and get a drink, you're paying for something right then.
Right.
So do bars that aren't part of it have cut rate drinks during that same bar crawl?
I don't think so. No.
It actually sounds a little bit like the high school parties where the word gets out and people can come whether they were invited or not. And even if the Arlington County Board decided they never allow another pub crawl, you could still have 3,000 people descend on Clarendon any given night.
I think that's pretty accurate.
I'm Sarah Somerville. Can you hear me? And I live in Clarendon Courthouse. It appears to me that we are treating the alcoholics and subs like misbehaving children. And the face on some of the 7,000 will change in the future. And I'm going to be waiting with bated breath to see how we treat them. It is out of control. This is safe. What are you going to do? You should get tough. You should get tougher on people who are misbehaving and breaking the law. Are you? That's my question.
It's an interesting question. We've had multiple conversations for a year and a half now about how we can control certain aspects of this. And one theory would be you could have 100 police officers there and lock up every single person that gets out of hand. I don't know if we were to do that at an event in March, whether it would have any bearing on the next event in June. It's very manpower intensive, and we have chosen to go with trying to keep as many people safe and get them out to their homes as possible. It's a tough question with regard to how many people can you truly lock up for being intoxicated. There are those that we have no choice. You try to put them in a cab, they'll go 1 block and they'll get back out. Or as John alluded to, he may tell them that they're not welcome Whitlows anymore because they're intoxicated. They put them out, and now there are hard times and they're causing trouble there. those are the ones that we absolutely lock. We had one that was locked up, Cameron, am I correct, it was at the All-American Bar Crawl, where he came out and urinated on the captain's police car, in front of the captain. And what are you gonna do?
Thank you. I'm Dave Foster. It's hard to follow not only that question, but that answer. But I guess I am curious, what do each of you think of the action taken by the county board? Was it sufficient to strike the right balance, or will we be having the same program again in 2 years?
I'm not 100% sure of my answer. I think, I've only read the document once, and it seems like it covers, I'm not sure if it was written directly for bar crawls, but it seems to cover a lot of different aspects of just people gathering that seems a little overbearing. I mean that, no offense to anybody, but I don't know if it directly addresses the problem or the controlling of that. And I think I'm going to stop there.
So at the meeting we had in mid-April, we were told that an adjustment to the special event permit process would be the quickest way to help bring some stability to the situation. Otherwise, we have to go through a legislative process with the state of Virginia, and trying to lament our problems to Richmond would probably fall on deaf ears. So this process was started, and I think what they've implemented is a start, and we will find out, I believe, November 1st, possibly, if it is enough. Up until the March Shamrock Crawl, the bar crawls were pretty much a normal weekend in Clarendon. There were a few more people there, but it was the same issues, the same number of problems that we were used to seeing as Lyon Village residents. The Shamrock Crawl, I think, was a perfect storm of events. It was the first nice weekend after a really hard, long, cold winter, and the kids came out in force and to have a good time. But the police were there, they stepped up, and since then promoters have stepped up, and the bar owners have stepped up to try to help resolve the problem. So we'll see. It is becoming more fair with the nonprofit organizers and organizers of Clarendon Day, or the Navy 5K bike, or whatever all the different things that go on in Clarendon. They have to have a special event license. They pay for the police, they pay for the EMS, they pay for the cleanup. Now it's for the bar crawls, that will happen as well. So we'll see if November 1st if it's enough, but right now I think we should start.
Yes, I believe that it will do the majority of what we want it to do. Since the first one is now, Alex alluded to, they've just filled out the application in the last couple of days for the event on November 1st, which is the day after Halloween, obviously. I believe that our ability to get reimbursed for the tremendous amount of resources that it takes to keep the community safe in these, that's the tool that we needed to get there. I do believe that these can be managed appropriately, and it was a tool that we didn't have, and we have it now. So to the 3 county board members here that we worked with to get that done, I'm satisfied that it's going to get us to where we need to be.
I'm Marjorie Hobart. My question is Dunne. Approximately how many weekends in a year are these large events going on? Not just bar calls, but the others you mentioned, marathons, and all kinds of things like that. Approximately how many weekends are there? And is it an issue for your employees to lose time off with their families or their other responsibilities week after week because you have something like an all hands on deck Thursday.
I'll answer part of your question. I'm actually going to ask Captain Apsel to answer part of it as well. He was the commander of our special operations section, and all of the special events, with the exception of these bar crawls, they go specifically through the second district. But all the rest of the special events are coordinated by our special operations section, and they are seasonally very challenging. For instance, for those people who live in Crystal City, almost every weekend you've got part of Crystal Drive closed off, and that's another challenge that the county board hears about all the time, is when is enough of these events? And that was one of the concerns we had with the bar crawls was, I think that some of the people in Lyon Village would say, we can tolerate this once every 4 or 6 weeks, but not 2 weekends in a row, because 2 weekends could lead to 3 weekends, and it was just too much. So they are a strain on our resources. They're also a benefit to the officers for the ability to work, overtime, but it does get taxing. If Cameron has a microphone, he can speak a little more because he coordinated that for several years as the commander.
Yeah, as far as numbers are concerned, I can't give you the exact numbers, but around this time and through Marine Corps Marathon, pretty much every weekend, there is some kind of special event occurring in the county, whether in South Arlington or in Clarendon area. These events are not mandatory participation from the officers; they're overtime, so they're voluntary. So officers choose to work in these events. We don't necessarily have problems filling any of them out. So it's not we're not, other than the Marine Corps Marathon, because it requires just so many of our assets that we do require some mandatory overtime, but that's talking about a race that involves Washington D.C. and us, Park Police. So that's about the only event that will require officers to work. The other events are voluntarily, so it doesn't really. If you're going to work it, you work it. I mean, I've never had a problem with filling any of the events, but around this time through August, the last Sunday in October is usually an event. I know since I left about 3 years ago, we do have more events, but there's a special event policy, and the group, they do look at how does it affect a particular neighborhood, and if you have too many events in one particular, events are turned down because it overwhelms. So City is a prime example where there have been events that have been turned down because there are traditional events that occur in Crystal City that get, I'm not sure priority, but they're organized and they always are there. So, hopefully that answers your question.
I'm Mary Singer. I was just curious how this reimbursement took place and garbage collection is not necessarily calculated, but who does it come from? Is it from the event planners or from the individual law?
Now that these bar crawls have been folded into our special event policy, it'll be a pass-through cost just like the Marine Corps Marathon or the Army 10 mile or whatever. So it's the organizers, the two handsome gentlemen at the table next to you will be glad to, but that's the expectation is we've worked out a model that for every 1,000 people that are going to have registered to be at the event, we are going to require 10 officers to be paid. Now, it's not going to be 10 officers from 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the same number of officers until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We're going to stagger it as we know that our staffing needs will be there. But the money will come from the organizers of the event.
So if the event has a lot of people show up who are not registered, then they will not be in that calculation.
That is correct. And some of we know we absorb some of the costs just like we do on any other Friday or Saturday night. I mean, our staffing model does allow that the first 8 officers that'll be working the event are going to be on our dime, the county's dime. Sorry, first 6. Now that we've had 7 or 8 of these events, we've got a pretty good idea as to what percentage over how many are registered or show up. So, I mean, we're very good at managing special events. We've been doing it for a long time. And even having 7 or 8 of these under our belt now, we have a pretty good idea as to what the size and scope of them will be if they don't sell 6,000 or 7,000 tickets on the front end, then, you know, it's just exponential beyond that.
My name's Markel. Thank you for all you've done there. Like you, and a lot of credit to the organizers. A lot of great things. But I guess the elephant in the room is that, you know, this is organized from the independent. It's not healthy for the people that are doing it. So that's all I can say. Any other questions? Astro, I don't know whether this came out or not. Does anyone have an exact figure or an estimate as to the tax revenue that we're seeing generated from this?
This is a naive question. I'm Mary Kay Parker. I'd like to ask, how do these people get home?
It's an excellent question. I think the reason that Clarendon is the destination compared to what it was previously being, you know, Adams, Morgan, and Georgetown is that there's a metro there. So we have a lot of people that do come and go that way, and now they can go all the way to Reston. And then the Fairfax County Police can deal with them when they get dumped out there. But in reality, and this was a conversation that took place before the meeting, was the whole Uber Lyft thing that's been very much in the news over the last couple of months. It's reality. The people in Arlington, the people in DC, the people in Virginia, the people in this whole country are going to have to get used to the fact that life is changing and the way millennials do business is different. If I can push a little button on my phone and have somebody pick me up 3 minutes later rather than waiting 20 minutes for a cab, they're going to do it. We just have to change the legislation and to make sure that it's a safe mode of transportation. But at the end of the night, at 1 or 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you hope that they had a designated driver, you know, the one friend that wasn't drinking. And I'm sure that John and other bars have always promoted opportunities to have the one person that was going to drink non-alcoholic drinks, it's on them. But they also get into a cab or get into Uber. And some of them stumble home or stumble only into Lyon Village and lay on somebody's porch until the police get called to go and figure out where they actually belong. So,
I have a question. Do you guys have statistics on, just for your events, what zip codes or people coming from Clarendon? And do you have that information? If it's an Arlington event, I would say about 80% of the people live in Arlington. Usually Boston, Courthouse, Austin, and Clarendon. For DC, we get a lot of Arlington residents going to DC as well, but if it's an Arlington event, I would say 80% of them. Also, the reason why we started our event, one of the reasons why we came back, why we came on. The reason why we came to Arlington is we saw that there were a lot of Arlington residents who were coming to our event. Seeing that our business was in Arlington, the residents in Arlington decided to want the first event. We wanted to keep people closer to home so they can metro, have here. And back to how we get home safely, we also offer our discount on Uber. So people that download the first time for $20 off the ride home. Further. Any other questions?
I'm Brian Martin. John, I heard you say that use the term responsible while Starcross. For some folks that doesn't make sense, but could you talk a little bit more about
what adjustments the bars can make or the organizers can make that would increase the responsibility of the event, and maybe you also could talk about, because we've already talked about the steps of the county board, so whether or not you think the deposits are settled, they're meant to, curb some behavior and address costs, but what are the next steps? What happens from now, assuming that these continue to be challenging events?
I just want to clarify one thing. I don't think I was referring to the same document that everyone else up here was referring to for the record in the answer to your question before. So, can't backpedal anymore on that one. But going forward, as far as what makes the bar crawl responsible, I don't know if you can clearly define that, like you said. I do think, you have options, limiting hours. Maybe it doesn't go from 2 o'clock until 9 o'clock at night, shorter time frame. These are all just options, which I'm sure you can discuss. Obviously, there's going to be more of a police presence. I can tell you from my firsthand experience from the first one we did, that was really busy, to the one after that, the police presence was phenomenal, and these guys were beyond helpful. And for me personally, it made a difference on people's behavior. Obviously, there's a few bad apples that are going to spoil it for everyone. But, I think we're on the right road to that. I do think, with the exception of a few bad situations, the 4th of July one, we were discussing it at the table before we came up to speak. At 8 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night, I was thinking it's a lot better than the one in March, the Shamrock one. So, I don't know if that quantifies my answer, but I think you can limit the number of ticket sales as far as we've gone over the numbers of how many bars there are, the capacity for all bars, limit the number there, limit the hours, change the drink specials. Those are all options.
I don't really have a question, but I'd like to say that I did a ride along with our police for a bar crawl. It was one of those, common ones, and it was quite an experience. And I would just like to compliment our police for it, because part of what we saw is far away, Ferguson, Missouri, was police that made things worse. Okay, there are ways of kind of getting people to behave worse. And here, I was so impressed with how the police handle it, really with a sense of humor. They're firm, but they keep their sense of humor. I think they care about the client. They really do. They really want people to be safe, and that comes through. And it creates a climate that helps quite a bit. So part of what I heard from your response is actually the increased police presence really could be very helpful. So I just want to, again, recognize the reason. It's a little scary when they describe this. I think you can all imagine as a board member hearing about, 6,000 drunk people all in one place at night. And it's scary. And the fact that really people don't get hurt and that things have gone well really is a testament to our police force. And I think we all owe them a big gratitude.
Those are kind words. I do appreciate it very much. And just to touch upon your reference, what happened in Ferguson, Missouri didn't just happen that night. The table was set for months and years before that. I'll just tip our hat a little bit. The details have not yet been worked out, but we're going to have a community forum. I believe we're looking at October 15th, which I think is a Wednesday night. 7 to 9, and we're looking at a couple of different venues, including possibly Wakefield High School. There's going to be a community forum to discuss the tensions that are all over the country now over that terrible event that took place that night, and to allow people to have a similar forum to this, a question and answer period, and say, how do we know that wouldn't happen here? And I can't tell you that it wouldn't happen here, but I can tell you I've spent 30 and a half years working for this police department, engaged in community policing on a daily basis to create the relationships to make sure that it doesn't to the best of my ability. And all the officers who work for me believe that every day you are making sure that that doesn't happen on the one bad day. So if you're interested in that type of a forum and want to engage in that type of discourse, I think it's going to be October 15th, but there'll be much more coming out of the media on that.
Thank you, Chief Dunne. And on that note, I think we can call a halt to the proceedings here. Some of us might want to catch as much of the President's address as we can. I'd like to call for a round of applause.
Uh-oh.